Hi, this is Andrea Gin, and I'm the producer and one of the hosts of Pop This. I'm just here to let you know that we are taking a break this week, and in lieu of a new episode, have gone into the archives and pulled up an old favorite for you to hear. Today, we are revisiting an episode where we talk about one of the best blockbuster summer movies of all time, Twister. And yes, I mean the original Twister from 1996, starring Helen Hunt, Bill Paxton, Jimmy Gertz, and Philip Seymour Hoffman, not the new Twister that just came out. I mean, that also could be good, but let's face it, it's never going to live up to the original. It's just not possible. I love this movie so much and watch it pretty much every summer. It's a classic adventure story with an amazing cast and features flying cows and a drive-in getting destroyed. Like I said, perfect summer movie. We'll be back next week with a new episode. Thanks for listening.
You are listening to Pop This, the podcast where three women talk about pop culture. Here are your hosts, Lisa Christiansen, Andrea Gin, and Andrea Warner.
So I took my first road trip, post-pandemic actual road trip, and, a little bit nerve-wracking. Things that I guess you could describe post-pandemic life as things you used to do very, very normally now feel very cautious and strange.
I also feel like it's more of a mid-pandemic road trip. Like we have restrictions lifted, which is great for that window. And now the restrictions start again. So we're sort of in the, you got a good couple weeks, Lisa.
I did. And I used them wisely. I did. Because I think a lot of people like road trips, but I feel like Canadians in particular really like hitting the road and going as far as possible. It's a big country. For some reason, we need to try to figure out ways to get to as much of it as possible. I don't know why that is. Do you feel that way, or do you think everyone likes road trips?
I feel like everyone likes road trips for the most part, or at least like really car dependent places like road trips.
Well, maybe it's a North American thing.
But like England is like feel like road trips too, though, right?
But
like
they call them different. They call them like caravanning or holidaying or something. They don't like they go
like the
somewhere.
Same principle, right? Oh, no. You mean like okay, I see. Whereas like we just take like road trips to like that's the actual trip.
The actual trip is like just to be out driving and stopping at different places.
Yeah.
Versus what is caravanning?
Well, like you go to a place and you stop there. That'd be more like camping.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. Okay,
there's a difference between camping and road tripping, wouldn't you say?
It might be like a very specific.
For me, there is.
Thing. Yeah, for me there is too. My God.
None of us are campers, are we? No. None of us.
I am not. No.
Nope.
Me either. And I mean, I've done it, so I can speak knowledgeably about how much I dislike it.
Agreed, me too.
It's not just a vague sort of, it doesn't seem very fun to sleep in the woods. It's not, actually. You know what you can do? Book yourself in at a hotel and go for a walk. Like, that is something you can do.
You can also stay in a cabin in the outdoors.
Exactly. Yeah. Or just go visit a lake for a day and then come home.
Yeah, day trip. Well, and the hotel that I stayed in on my trip did have a sign outside the door which said, warning, mother and cubs seen in area.
Oh, you were basically camping.
Never seen that sign before in my life. Like, yeah, basically. But, we just stayed in an air-conditioned hotel, and there was a pool, a really great pool, and this is the first time I've been in a hotel pool in a very, 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 or any pool, I would say. I have not been in a pool in a very long time.
Oh, I've been going to the pool a lot. I've been swimming like a lot since, I guess, May.
Where?
Kitts and New Brighton. And,
okay. Outside then.
Yeah, outside. I don't like indoor pools. They just like, I don't know. They're very intense, like swamp water breathing situations. And I hate like a lot of chlorine.
I don't like the kids' pool because it's salt water.
New Brighton is saltwater too. I like them. I like saltwater.
They're very cold too, aren't they?
Yeah.
They're not heated.
They're not that cold. No, they're not heated, but they're not that cold.
Not heated to me is going to be cold. Like, I mean, that's like the ocean. So basically you're just saying you go to the ocean.
Yeah, but like in a pool form, it's like nothing is going to bite me usually.
No sea monsters or seaweed.
Nothing is gonna bite you if you go like into Jericho Beach water either.
Yeah, except possibly like the sanitation that the oil tankers are letting loose into the.
That will coat you. It won't.
Yeah,
bite
and they
you.
have real rules at the pool. As soon as they get a brown floater, it's a all hands on deck situation. Apparently,
Does that happen often?
There's signs. There's like signs being like, look, make sure you go to the bathroom. Don't let it, like, there's an actual like poop warning. Like if you poop, it closes the pool for like X amount of time.
Well, here's the thing about signs to me. Signs should be telling you things that sort of surprise you. That to me should just be something that doesn't need to be said.
Well, you'd think that, but like
Like,
my
do
sister,
not poop in the pool.
Well, I mean, they're not usually telling adults that. I think they're like trying to like get parents to keep an eye on their kids' butts or whatever. But like,
Good luck.
I know. My sister one time was at one of these pools that I just mentioned, and it was a number of years ago. So the sign might be helpful actually, because there was a poop floater incident, and she told the lifeguard, and the lifeguard just shrugged and was like, "A lot of kids here. What are you gonna do?" And
Whoa.
she hated that pool from this moment on, but now it has a sign, so we hope everyone has like different attitudes towards it now.
This isn't poop related, but when I went to a spa in Iceland.
Best sentence I've ever heard. This isn't poop related. I think that should be the name of this episode. This isn't poop related.
But you have to shower before you go into the spa. But
Yeah.
it had an actual sign with a picture of like a body and like instructions on like how to shower, like where you needed to wipe while you were showering.
Wow.
Very specifically. Yeah.
Wow.
I was a little surprised by that.
Well, I
Well,
mean,
you
have
usually
you?
have to shower before you go into a pool, but I tend to just sort of, I mean, it's not, I just
Oh,
kind of
so the
walk
sign's
through
for
it.
you. I see. Okay.
I'm Andrea Warner.
I'm Lisa Christiansen.
I'm Andrea Gin.
This is Pop This, and we're talking about Twister. That
Why, you ask?
I mean, summer
Because
blockbuster
Exactly.
turned
Classic.
25 years old this year.
Timeless.
Yes.
It kind of is. Like,
Except for, obviously, if I worked in this professional meteorological world, I would probably be laughing at the technology. But since I don't know anything about that world, I'm not laughing about the technology.
I mean, honestly, when I got to one of the parts of the outline that AG put together that was like, learn all about how tornadoes really work, I was like, is this a movie that taught us how tornadoes really work? Because I don't.
I
go
believe I
to-
know how tornadoes work.
Do you think you know now?
Based
Like,
on watching this movie like 40 times, yes. And
I
there's
don't know
no
if
one
this is
to.
quite, I don't think it's a documentary. I just want to say
But
that right now.
there's no one to contradict that knowledge. So, as far as I know,
But do you
I do know.
often go to the cinemas and the great blockbuster summer films to acquire your like science technology information?
yeah, like Jurassic Park. Like, what else? I didn't know
that's how I
anything
learned
about-
paleontology, true, and I learned all about the police from Die Hard. And
I didn't
yeah,
know.
you're right. We
I
learn
didn't
a
know
lot.
the exact details of Titanic until I watched that, like the actual disaster, until I watched that movie.
Wow.
So there's a lot to learn in Twister, is what we're trying to say. You might have thought of it as a summer blockbuster with just lots of stuff flying through the sky, but no, this is a science film.
We think of it as just a documentary plus.
Exactly. And everything's in the plus. That's for sure.
Have we ever talked about a more sciencey film? I don't
Jurassic
think
Park.
so.
I mean, Jurassic Park is
Well,
pretty
there's an
sciencey.
interest. Yeah, and it's not a coincidence. Both were written by Michael Crichton.
It definitely is not a coincidence. Like, Michael Crichton was just like, okay, what did I do for Jurassic Park that was pretty good? All right, but let's, instead of dinosaurs, twisters. Let's
I
do
think
it.
they're called tornadoes, but,
Someone's, some people. So I read an essay on the internet about how Twister is basically Jurassic Park in an alternate universe. Like, all the characters are the same.
Yes.
They're just on a different adventure.
I completely agree, but I do think that the Jurassic Park characters are just like a little bit more well-defined and more interesting.
yes, a lot more interesting. I thought there was a... Yeah. Yeah. I think that if you ever needed to understand the concept of one-dimensional characters, this is the movie for you. So... But
Well,
that said, that Twister has so many personalities.
Oh, the
you know,
twisters are like
the Twister-
6-dimension characters.
They are
They're incredible.
volatile, and they rage, and then it's all out, and then they are good to go. They're just like, whew, I feel like I got all of my negative energy out, and I can just dissipate into the atmosphere now with a good, clear focus for the future. That's what our Twister is. It's more dimensional than our characters.
I mean, I did feel it really represented my, like, PMS. Because I, like, that fury, that, like, just, like, fists pummeling and then, like, slowly dying out. That's kind of me.
But if anyone ever wanted to watch a story that anthropomorphized weather, this is also the one for you.
Can you imagine
Absolutely.
if anyone was like, well, I just need a movie that anthropomorphizes weather. Who's going to give it to me? And then
But I think
they
there's
gave us
probably a lot
Twister.
of those. We can watch a movie about volcanoes, and then there's like ice ages, and then there's like movies about tsunamis and
Yeah, that's true.
rainstorms, snowstorms,
Monsoon wedding.
monsoon wedding. Yeah, we've got, heat waves,
Yeah.
crazy things that happen during a heat wave. The fun thing about this movie, I will say, is that it's over one day or several hours. I'm not entirely sure.
It's basically like it's like 30 hours or something.
Should we read the background in case?
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Get to
Some
the
people
important
don't know what
stuff.
this movie's about.
Yeah, okay. I can do background.
Okay.
Twister is a 1996 American epic disaster adventure film directed by Jan de Bont. Speed, The Hunt for Red October, Die Hard, Basic Instinct, from a screenplay by Michael Crichton and Anne-Marie Martin. The film stars Helen Hunt, Bill Paxton, Jamie Gertz, Carrie Ellis, and focuses on a group of storm chasers trying to deploy a tornado research device, basically a garbage can filled with balls, during a severe outbreak in Oklahoma. Twister was officially released in theaters on May 10th, 1996. It is notable for being the first film to be released on DVD in the United States. Wow. It also sold a bucket of tickets, 495 million worldwide, second highest grossing film of 1996. Amazing.
That is amazing. I will take on the synopsis then. During the approach of the most powerful storm in decades, university professor Dr. Joe Harding, played by Helen Hunt, and an underfunded team of team of students prepare the prototype for Dorothy, a groundbreaking data gathering device conceived by her estranged husband, Bill, played by Bill Paxton. When Harding tells Bill that Dorothy is ready for testing and that their privately funded rival, Dr. Jonas Miller, played by Carrie Elways, has stolen the idea and built his own, Bill rejoins the team for one last mission. Also, it should be noted that Bill is there to see Joe to get his divorce papers signed because he is about to marry Dr. Melissa Reeves. Seems like he has a thing for doctors, played by Jamie Gertz.
I mean, he has great taste in women, but I don't understand what either of these women see in Bill.
I did not see anything particularly.
But I mean, at the same time, Bill Paxton was a very popular actor.
Sure, he's affable and pleasant, and I like it. Like, I like him fine, I guess. But, like, the character in the movie, everyone is just so excited to see him all the time. All the guys are like, oh, you're so legendary, blah, 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 blah. But all we get is this, like, I don't know, kind of like dude who pretends, or who is apparently embarrassed by his fiance's incredible job as a sex therapist, and, like, left Helen Hunt. Like, I just don't... This guy, what does he have to recommend himself?
Yeah, well, he can smell dirt, I think. And everyone seems to be rather in awe of his ability to smell dirt.
Because he can tell when a tornado is coming by smelling dirt.
Yeah, you know how other people tell there's a tornado coming? Science. I bet you Dr. Helen Hunt can tell you that pretty quick. She can probably look at a device and go, there's a tornado coming.
But I mean,
Agreed.
He's the person that's supposed to notify other people.
You're not going to, like, the beginning of the movie is seeing, like, all the scientists at the, I guess it's called NOAA. Is that right?
Well, they know that the tornado is coming. They're all there at the center.
Do they?
They know
you know what you didn't see? You saw them using their devices and models and everything. You didn't see them getting on the phone with Bill saying, "Hey, Bill, what's the dirt situation? Do we got a tornado coming?" That didn't happen once in this whole movie.
Not once. So,
Well,
AG,
that was supposed to add a dimension to, like add something about him, right?
I mean, I get it. Like, they want a folksy dude who apparently, like, I guess the backstory is he's quote unquote sold out and taking a weatherman job at a TV show or TV news program or something like that. And, like, Dr. Reeves is supposed to be his, like, yuppie girlfriend. And, like, this is a movie that still has, like, sort of those 90s values, quote unquote, of, like, corporate sponsorship is evil. And, like, we're so raw and just, like, I don't know, funded by, like, the strong ethics of science and our dirt sniffing that, like, we are the DIY twister chasers. We don't need to, like, be sellouts. And I just, like, I don't know, some of the sellout conversation I find still very boring at this point in time. And I mean, you know, not that I think, like, corporate sponsorship is, like, the key to everything. I think, like, you know, we should just tax corporations and, like, let governments fund research projects. That would be smart. But that's not what was happening that much in 90s versus, but it was happening more then. Anyway, God.
Well, I think it's more because we just all hate Carrie Elways, who turns out after, you know, Princess Bride to just turn out to be the jerk in almost every movie. It's a very weird career trajectory.
I love it for him. I feel like he understood that he was going to be incredibly pretty until he started to grow facial hair. And then as soon as he was able to muster a mustache, he knew he could be evil. And I feel like this was just like, I feel like he chose evil character after evil character after evil character to counter the, like, sort of goodness of the Princess Bride.
I'm not familiar with his movies. What has he done besides Princess Bride in this movie?
These are it. That's all.
That's it.
No, he's done a lot of stuff.
He was in Liar Liar. He was like gonna be the one that his wife was gonna be with that wasn't as funny as Jim Carrey. Boy, that's a bad movie. That did not age well. I don't know if anyone's seen Liar Liar recently, but
I'm just looking up all the roles that he's been in. But anyway, he was Robin Hood in Robin Hood Men in Tights, of course, which was like a classic, and he was the hero of that. So, he's in the Saw film franchise.
Missed that.
Glory, Hot Shots, The Jungle Book, Days of Thunder, Dracula, Kiss the Girls, Liar Liar, Cradle Will Rock, Shadow of the Vampire, The Cat's Meow, No Strings Attached, and then a bunch of stuff on, like, X-Files, Seinfeld, The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. You know, he's done quite a lot, but...
Well, I haven't seen any of those except for Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. I
you
can't
never saw
picture...
Liar Liar?
No, I can't picture who he is on Marvelous Mrs. Maisel.
I was trying to think of that too, because usually I recognize him and go, oh, look, there's Carrie Elways. But I could not get a sense of how large this tornado was. At various times, it was sucking up giant The one at the end, anyway.
There's more than one tornado.
No, but the last one, the one that can suck up semi-trucks.
It was the finger of God, an F5. Aren't you paying attention to any science?
No, I am. It could suck a whole truck and a house. It can have a house, but suddenly at the end, it didn't seem to have that much power over that one barn. I don't know. It was
well, they leather strapped themselves in as if they were. I did find it hilarious when they run inside the barn and it's just hundreds of killing implements. And
then I thought it was going to become a horror movie all of a sudden.
They're like, what is this place?
And then the family just crawls out of that hole at the end, and you're
God.
like, I don't understand the juxtaposition between knife shack and little kids coming out. But, everyone's got a hobby.
I'm going to answer the Marvelous Mrs. Maisel question. He played Gavin Hawke in the 3rd season of Marvelous Mrs. Maisel.
Who was Gavin Hawke?
I mean, that I can't answer. I'm just letting you know he did play Gavin Hawke.
We have no answers for anyone.
I can't remember. I feel like Mrs. Maisel goes in one ear and out the other. Anyway. Okay. So Lisa, had it been a long time since you had seen, did you see it when it first came out and then you saw it again?
Yes. This was the second time probably I've ever seen it.
Okay. And so did you like it? I get the feeling you don't love it.
No, I usually I'm not a disaster film person so much as I am an action film. I like action films, like with spies. We've been, we've discussed my love of spies and those kinds of movies. Just like this, it felt like a throwback to those 1970s disaster films, right? Like the Poseidon Adventure and the Towering Inferno. And I guess there's always another one what's the other one about the Ice Age that Here Tomorrow or It's Coming Tomorrow? Or
that one was
The Day After Tomorrow.
Day After Tomorrow. But that was 2000s, I think.
Yeah. No, they're always coming out, or maybe Armageddon's another one of them. So I'm not as big a fan of the just seeing a volcano spew and everyone's running. It just seems like these movies are just about a lot of people running from things.
I love that. It's my favorite thing in movies.
Have you seen it 40 times? Seriously?
I happily watch Twister every summer as a fun summer blockbuster movie. I love disaster films. It's one of my favorite genres.
Incredible.
Amazing.
Independence Day, Titanic, Apollo 13.
Have you gone back to those 70s ones, like the Towering Inferno and Poseidon Adventure?
No, I haven't. I love the 90s disaster films.
But you haven't watched the 70s ones. I watched the Towering Inferno for some reason a few years ago, and it was so funny. You've got to put that on your list.
I'll check that out, yeah.
But what do you like about Twister? Can you just
It's just a fun movie. I agree with all the criticism of it, that the dialogue's not great, the characters aren't one-dimensional, and the story is very predictable. But I don't know. I just think it nails the formula of a 90s summer blockbuster disaster movie really well, and I find it entertaining every time I watch it.
Yeah, that's totally fair. I mean, so I'll be honest. When Twister first came out, I did not like it. It was fine, but I really did not like either Bill Paxton or Helen Hunt. And for a long time, I was pretty convinced I didn't really care for Helen Hunt. And
why is that?
I just I really hated Mad About You.
I find Helen Hunt to be one of the most beige people. It's hard to dislike her, isn't it? It's just she's Helen Hunt.
But beige people, those offend me.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, that.
It's being offended by a kindergarten teacher or something to me. She's just
many of them are on my hit list. No.
Oh, okay.
It's that it's that beigeness actually that I find kind of it's you neither have a personality nor don't have a personality, and that to me is the biggest offense, And but I mean, a lot of that I think honestly is the internalized misogyny that I have like grown up with and expect, I'm still always unpacking and unlearning and relearning different ways of being. And I think Twister in and of itself, what I realized when I watched it this time is that like the movie, even though it has Helen Hunt in this lead role and, basically Jamie Gertz is like, sort of like the third build. The movie doesn't really care for women that much. And I think that was actually what I was picking up on like way back in the day. And so watching it now, it was like a very different experience. And I finally started to realize, I was like, oh, well, I think actually both Helen Hunt and Jamie Gertz are doing everything they can with what is written on the page. And I found out after that not only did they do everything they can with what was written on the page, that they tried to get things rewritten on the page so that they were less catty, like the characters were like less catty together, and that there was like more of a sort of like just like, as AG pointed out, like it passes the Bechdel test, like just like having a conversation that's like not about a man. Or it doesn't actually at this point, but they tried really hard to get it to pass the Bechdel test. And so anyway, watching this made me really, and then I remembered I also loved Helen Hunt in Girls Just Want to Have Fun, this really weird movie from like 85 or 86 starring Sarah Jessica Parker and Helen Hunt as teenage girls competing in a dance competition. And that's a really fun movie. So yeah, that's my favorite Helen Hunt performance. But now I've come around and I enjoy Twister, and I like how relentless the action is. Like this movie gives us a tornado in the opening minutes, and then we basically get like at least one tornado every 25 minutes until it's over.
At least. But didn't it occur to you as I was watching the movie that we've seen this so many times? This is a favorite trope of Hollywood to show the child having some impact, like it was in Men in Black 3 or 4 or something, that Tessa Thompson's parents are attacked or they saw some aliens, and then she commits her whole life to being able to figure out that is such a popular thing I've seen in almost every one of these kinds of disaster movies. But didn't it occur to you that in Helen Hunt's dad hadn't held on to that door, he would have been fine?
Oh, yeah.
I completely agree. That's exactly. Yeah. Like if he had just come down and stayed where they were, they all probably would have been fine.
They were fine. The mom and the daughter were just fine.
Yeah.
But he held on to that door handle. So I tended to feel kind of like, I don't really understand did they want us to think that? Because he just flew off, or was it just the spectacle of seeing a man holding a door flying off into the tornado? I don't even think that could happen.
Well, I mean, we saw the semi like in the tornado, so I mean, for sure,
and a
it
cow
could, I guess, happen. But like
2 cows,
possibly the same cow.
Possibly the same cow.
Oh,
but
yeah,
I think
you're right. It just keeps going around.
I think
and
it was
around.
2 cows. But like, I just like.
Sorry.
No, I just this idea, like, I mean, obviously this is like a trope that goes way back to all kinds of things. Like, Batman becomes Batman because of what Bruce Wayne witnesses in an alley, that kind of stuff. Like, it's a classic.
It was even in the latest like Melissa McCarthy superhero movie that we just watched.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thunder Force?
Thunder Force, yeah. Like the parents are killed, and so they, they're committed to. I mean, it's a good origin story kind of thing, because it tells you right away that like, a complex character is dealing with a lifetime of like trauma and grief, and that somehow like provides a sort of, it's a shorthand to, character detail, right? Like richness or whatever. And I get it. Like, but the idea when he says like, I can't remember if he says this exactly, but basically it's like, that it's not personal, right? Like that the hurricane wasn't hunting, or the tornado wasn't like hunting you, basically. Like I'm paraphrasing, but like, I was just like, she could have had one good session with a therapist.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she could have had a whole other life.
Yeah, a whole different job. Or she could have had a little bit. So, I mean, if I missed the scene, it's possible. But I really feel like I missed the scene where they explain why they split up. Was there a line? Or were we just to infer that it was her intensity of tornadoes that caused...
They have like one brief thing where they talk about how she basically says like he gave up on them and he's like, you were never in this marriage. And like, but like, it seems like they haven't been apart that long. And it also seems like they both still live for the rush of the tornado chase. So like, if they could get through every tornado season together and then maybe just like have, you know, like that could have, I feel
he just got tired of tornadoes. It strikes
it felt
me
to me that it was part of like this 90s kind of sellout culture where he kind of wanted to retire and get a sort of stable job as a weatherman and not be out in the field anymore, but she still wanted to be a hurricane chaser. So
it was a claustrophobic gang to be running with, I gotta say. Like, it didn't seem like they gave you a lot of space, that crew.
Well,
but maybe you were only together for the hurricane or for the tornado season, right?
But they all listen to each other on, like, why don't they just like turn off their microphones for like a few seconds to have personal conversations instead of like Dr. Melissa Reeves did not sign up for any of this at all. Like she came with him while he was going to,
which was very game, and that should have been applauded. But instead, we turned like that white suit she was wearing. Was there not a moment where he said that might not be the outfit to wear?
Yeah, like, I mean, she's like sort of classically positioned. It was as if she was stepping out of like an 80s film where she is the preppy bad guy. And like that was like her whole styling. And like, I mean, she is like this incredibly competent person who continues to do her job from a car on a very old cell phone. She's remote working from the scene of a tornado chase for her patient Donald. Like, she's doing so much above and beyond. And she has to sit here and watch while her fiance pines over his like super cool loose cannon renegade storm chaser like ex. Like, I don't know. It didn't seem very respectful.
No, and she deserves better. And I'm glad she decides to just walk away at the end.
Me too.
It's very convenient for everybody too, the way she does it. Like, oh, this was a huge mistake. Like, but wow, that is I mean, I think most people who have had breakups would love to be able to not only just walk away from someone, but your fiance. You were planning to get married. You had divorce papers to finally move on with your life, and you're okay. Like, maybe it's just because she's got PTSD now from that entire experience. That could be part of it.
Well, she's a therapist too. So.
She is a therapist, so maybe she would recognize that not only did we break up, but I am going to be traumatized for years every time the sky gets just a tiny bit dark.
I just like, I don't know. I just want her to have so much more, and I'm glad that she leaves him. I kind of like, I wanted Helen Hunt to not settle for him either, but fine. I guess it seems like they're destined to be together or whatever because her aunt loves him too. And
yeah, it made no sense at all. I mean, and it just didn't. However, points to AG here for liking this as an action film because the scene where they drive through a house had to have been one of the most ridiculous action movie scenes ever. Like, honestly, if there's a list out there of the most ridiculous things you've seen in an action film, I honestly think driving their truck through a house has got to be the craziest thing I've ever seen in a movie.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's kind of like what appeals to me about Helen Hunt in this movie is that she, up until this point, and I don't think like after this movie, is known as an action star. She's kind of like a very surprising choice to cast in a movie like this. And so I kind of like that.
Yeah. Can we talk about like sort of the special effects like have a
pretty good.
They're pretty good. Yeah. But like can I just tell you about apparently so Helen Hunt went temporarily blind from the shooting. So I'm going to just read you a couple things. So this is from the Vulture article. And she says, the shoot went on forever and it was really brutal physically. I think the reason it holds up is that it wasn't a lot of visual effects. They were actually throwing stuff at us constantly. And then here she describes like, okay, so, oh my God, sorry, I gotta find it. Oh yeah. So what do you remember about the day you were temporarily blinded? So she answers, let the record show that you brought this up. I didn't want it to be a list of complaints. Apparently, it was the sunniest, most blue sky tornado season in Oklahoma history. And so they had all of these units out shooting stormy skies in other parts of the country. But in order to darken the sky behind us, he had to shine a ton of lights on the actors. So when he brought the image down, you could still see Bill and I on the truck. So I remember these 4 16,000 watts of light strapped to the back of the camera truck shooting us. Next day, after they're done shooting everything, Bill came into the makeup trailer and said, "Can you see?" And I said, "Not really." It was super weird, but it was not a big deal ultimately. We put on some dark glasses and we walked around like mice in Cinderella for a while. But I was very relieved that Bill was the one who came forward and said, quote, "I might be going crazy, but I don't think I can see. But it did go away. I guess they fry your corneas off and then they grow back."
What?
Yeah. And apparently they were like throwing hail at them. They were throwing broken shards of candy glass at them. Like it was a very intense, like physically intense shoot.
Well, that makes sense because there is something about the reason it works, I think, is because all of those actors are seriously in it, for better or for worse, because they're a bunch of idiots. But they really do seem quite committed to these roles, as small and as strange as they are, especially Philip Seymour Hoffman. That's not the guy you would imagine is going to go on. Rest in peace, is, going to go on and win an actor playing Truman Capote when you see this.
But he's so good in this.
Yeah, he's great.
He's so perfect in it. But I just I was marveling, like listening to her go through all of the physically rigorous things that they went through. I think that's one of the reasons that this movie works so well as an action film, because yes, they do rely on special effects, but they are also basically physically assaulting their actors for weeks on end and getting that performance out of them.
Well, it worked. I mean, look at, $495 million. Is that, what was the number one movie from 1996? If that wasn't the number one, did we?
They beat Mission Impossible that year.
Oh, so, okay.
Twister actually beat Mission Impossible that year. So that's pretty incredible.
Oh, okay. Independence Day was the number one movie.
That was
another classic.
Was a wild year.
There's another action film.
Another classic disaster movie. Yes.
Yeah, that's again not one of my favorites. I mean, this one did have these were supposed to be scientists, so they were doctors. But my other least favorite film is the blue collar. I don't understand your book learning, but I do understand this. And they held out a gun, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And that had Bill Pullman, not Bill Paxton.
Yeah.
Bill Pullman, Bill Paxton, Bill Paxton, Bill Pullman. It was a thing for a while.
It was. It really was. Can I chat a little bit more about what they did with the or what Helen Hunt and Jamie Gertz tried to do, sort of with the characters, because I really enjoyed her talking about this. So Helen Hunt says Jamie Gertz and I flew there together the first day. We were both ambivalent about leaving our lives at home, and I really was super fond of her. There were things in the original script where the women were sort of catty with each other, and I raised my hand and said, "That's not going to be fun to play or to watch, and I'm not sure if I want to do that." Both as characters and actors on set, we just kind of linked arms. I just really love that so much. And then and then she talks about how she didn't realize that oh yeah, here it goes. I didn't know at that point that I had a feminist agenda, which I do. I just knew it wouldn't be fun to watch, and I didn't want to play it. The technical term would be yucky.
That makes sense to me because I feel like this story is written for them to be catty, and now that she says that, you can see that Helen Hunt is not steering into it. Like she is not.
It's more sweet, like in the restaurant scene where they're sitting there and all Jamie Gertz says is, "You're still in love with him," and she has that face like, I'm not going to acknowledge that. And I thought that was played really well because that was the only sort of reference to it. And that was enough. And neither of them were really angry, except for that Helen Hunt decides to buy all of it as some kind of, I didn't understand that, but I like that scene.
Yeah. Like I feel like more or less Helen Hunt's character is like civil and respectful of Jamie Gertz's character. For most of the movie, it's the derogatory stuff comes from Bill Paxton's character.
Totally.
Why don't you go back to the hotel, honey? I'll come see you later. Why don't you just go back to the hotel? Like, here's this woman trying to be involved in your life. She cares about what you care about. And what are you saying to her? Just go back to the hotel. This is no place for you. Yeah.
Well,
take one look at Helen Hunt in that undershirt, and you know how this always pans out. You're not leaving.
That's the thing. That's the thing. Like, he just he's like feeling his feelings again, and it's, I don't know. It really, the movie like frustrates me in retrospect, as obviously so many movies do. We all have been there, and we've all seen that. But I just like, I really appreciate that 25 years ago, she couldn't stand up for herself and say, "Hey, I can't see," but she could stand up for her character in this film and say, "Hey, this isn't the way to play this relationship between these two women."
Well, it did make a difference. I think that definitely helped. It would have been, I mean, the movie had already enough excitement with a twister, and many of them, and this backstory of let's get this science going. We didn't need to have catfight too. I mean, that's unnecessary. Although it was a big part of the movie.
Yeah, they certainly flirted with catfight like as a sub theme, but I think that it's really clear that both the women actors resisted it, which I like a lot.
Yeah, which is what I dislike on Friends when Joey's all, "Ooh, catfight." They're always saying that every single time, and it's disturbing.
But it's always to a certain extent, they always make fun of the person. Like when Joey says it, it reveals more about his character and like his immaturity. It's never like. But in this movie, I think they really believe like, "Ooh, catfight." Like it's. Like none of the like secondary characters were asking for it, but they were all like waiting for it. But like, yeah, it's just. Although I will say, the steak and eggs looked kind of gross. Like
they were big steaks.
Those were huge steaks.
Although I gotta say, that funniest line I've ever heard is, "Where did you get the steaks? Did you see the cows on the lawn?" No. I did laugh for some reason very hard at that.
I also really, honestly, I laughed when I opened up the outline that you wrote, AG, and saw that rated PG for intense depiction of very bad weather.
That was the actual words they used on the screen.
Oh my God, I laughed so hard. I had forgotten about that, but that made
because there really isn't a lot of swearing, is there? I guess a couple of swear words.
No, it was rated PG-13 because of the weather scenes.
And I mean, despite what you think, Helen Hunt in that white undershirt, didn't see her get wet once. Did you?
Oh, she was in the shower. Even at the end, she had a shower,
but we only saw her face.
Yeah.
And then at the end, when she does get in that water, she's got like a shirt on over top of her undershirt. Very chaste. Yeah,
it's very, very chaste. Can I say like that Jan de Bont isn't that nice a little bit? So like, Helen Hunt isn't complaining about him, but apparently, like, he told Entertainment Weekly, "I love Helen to death, but she can also be a little clumsy," which was in response to the fact that she got hit in the head during filming by a car door. So Helen replies to this question, "That's so brutal. That is so brutal. Let's just leave it at that. We'll just let him have the last word, that it happened because I was clumsy. I'd prefer to leave that sitting on the table." And Vulture responds, "Would you describe yourself as clumsy? You seem very physically adept in the movie." Yeah, I wouldn't, but he did, and that's okay. Honestly, this interview with Helen Hunt is...
Yikes.
That's like passive aggressive, like I've never heard in my life.
It brought me so much more, like, just so much more, like, closer to Helen Hunt, I have to say. Because, like, I feel like she did put up with a lot. And also, you guys, I have to really recommend the article again, because she talks about how close her and Philip Seymour Hoffman got, and how close her and Jamie got. And
we'll link to it in the show notes.
Yeah. She describes Bill Paxton as just, like, super enthusiastic, which is one of the best human qualities, and that he was always wanting to do a second Twister.
Twister 2.
Because R.I.P. to Bill Paxton, too.
Yes, exactly.
But last year...
that's a shame.
Yeah.
Last year it was announced that they were going to do a remake of Twister.
Okay, can we talk about that? Because the guy who's in charge of that remake has not... Okay, we haven't seen Top Gun Maverick, so we don't know what that looks like. It never even came out, right? Like,
is that still supposed to come out? Like, maybe I know everything was pushed back because of the
I think it's
pandemic,
still supposed to come out, like, Christmassy. And actually, Can I just say something right now? I've never seen the original Top Gun.
What?
That seems like an omission.
I've also never seen Cocktail or Risky Business.
Okay, so Tom Cruise is not your guy. Have you seen Mission Impossibles?
Yes, I have seen those.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have you seen Magnolia?
I love Magnolia. That I don't know how it stands up, but when it first came out, I saw it 3 times in the theater. I was weird that year, but it was a very cathartic movie for me.
Interesting.
Oh, okay.
We'll dig into that another time. Yeah, I don't think they can improve on this Twister.
I don't see how a remake of this Twister would be in any... Like, they would just rely so much just on green screen.
Yeah, exactly. They would, and you could tell this wasn't... You're so right about that. You could definitely tell that this was an awful lot of stunts and very dangerous situations for actors with flying cars and pieces of metal and knives and rocks and cows and semi-trucks and houses.
Well, and like burning your corneas off? Like, that is not...
I didn't know they could
do you have
just grow
insurance
back.
for that on a set? I would, but at least it grew back like a starfish arm, hey?
Yeah, who knew that was
corneas are
possible?
the starfish arms of the eyeballs.
There you go. I like how you said that. But I notice also you have a question in our script here. Can we talk about the character of Aunt Meg, played by Lois Smith? Why do you think so many people love this character, even though she plays a relatively small role in the story? It is just a very jarring, all of a sudden, we're all running to Aunt Meg's, and I didn't feel like I even knew who she was, or how they all knew her, or what the whole situation is with Aunt Meg. Like, I would have thought, even at the end when she's in the ambulance and she's all bashed up, and I love the ambulance attendant going, she's going to be fine. I thought, buddy, you ever heard of internal injuries? I don't know. I don't mean to do your job. But I feel like she might have some other injuries besides the things you can see.
Yeah, no kidding.
But anyway, she's all, you got to go and do this for me. You got to go and do this for me. I'm like, were you aware of the backstory with her dad? Like, like it felt very odd. Who is she?
Do you mean, like, who's the character?
Whose aunt is she?
I believe she's Helen Hunt's aunt. Yeah.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Pretty sure. Yeah.
But they all call her Aunt Meg. Oh, they're all calling her Meg.
Yeah, they all call her Aunt Meg just because, like, it's same as, like, a lot of people call my grandma.
Yeah, okay. She just sort of, all of a sudden, there they are. And is she just, like, always ready for them with 4 pounds of steak meat and eggs?
Seems like it. Seems
She's
like it.
Always got. She has a huge house for one person and a dog. that is always ready to receive like 10 to 12 storm chasers. Also, she's played by Lois Smith, and Lois Smith is just the best. Like, I love her. Like, she also played Grandma on True Blood, Sookie's grandma on True Blood, and she's been in a bunch of things. And
she's been in like Fried Green Tomatoes. She was in Lady Bird, Minority
so warm.
Report.
You definitely, yeah. I mean, I can see why people like that role. It's just that it in terms of the story, it felt like I could have used a couple of scenes just to set up what are we doing here,
or just one scene that's like, oh my god. Like, I mean, I know that we hear like, oh, you know, we're near Aunt Meg's, but like we don't hear like at no point does Helen Hunt's character just be like, okay, let me call her and tell her we're on the way. And then, you know, she's like, Aunt Meg. And then she's like, oh, you know, like, oh, it's so good to hear from you. Blah, blah, blah. You know, I really, you know, or just like one small scene about how like maybe she made like a piece of art in tribute to her like dead brother or something.
Yeah.
You know, just something small. Like
Well,
another
maybe
small
some
reference.
acknowledgement, but the fact that you shouldn't be that surprised when a tornado comes because you apparently live in a tornado zone. Like, I don't know. Everyone acted like this was just the most freakish thing that had ever happened, even though I know there's a place called Tornado Alley.
Well, I think it was about, I think they weren't surprised necessarily, but I think it was the speed with which they were building and the lack of only having like a 3-minute tornado warning.
Right. Yes.
Right. So like it's just about getting like a longer warning time so that you can, because they can also change direction pretty quickly. Apparently I did pick up a lot of science from Twister.
I think I knew all of this stuff before Twister because I used to like to watch documentaries about tornadoes. I find them fascinating. Yeah, I did.
Oh.
And yet you don't like this science movie. It's so interesting, Lisa.
Right? I know. What a contradiction. I know.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. So I can't believe how much I've come around on Twister and personally this like
Within
my
this
journey.
episode.
Well, I mean, like D. Lockett wrote in Vulture this extremely accurate description of it being, it is both a rom-com and a divorce drama, equal parts dystopian-ish thriller, an educational material, is an action adventure, the best of its kind because a good chunk of said action takes place in large trucks and involves high-speed chases where they're in hot pursuit of weather. And and for a movie that would have you believe that the titular character, Ms. Twister, is the villain.
Very smart.
But you've got a human villain too. Thank you, Carrie Elways. But yeah, and then they go on to write, but I've saved the best for last. Bitch, there are flying cows.
That really is the best. Like there's one scene I would just like to just draw everyone's attention back to. So the first time they attempt to launch Dorothy, they have apparently not prepared Dorothy at all. And Bill Paxton gets knocked around. He gets like physically assaulted by all kinds of things. He's having to try and like turn this machine on the back of a pickup truck that's like hurtling at like 50 miles an hour. The second time they go to turn Dorothy on, Helen Hunt just flips the switch. What happened?
Yeah.
Why was Dorothy
just way smarter?
So is it? It's just that she's smarter, isn't it? You're right.
Yeah,
you're right.
I
Never
think
mind.
so.
I also
Right.
knew that Bill Paxton's coat was going to get caught on something. That's just
for
so
sure.
classic. Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. Like oh God. You're right. It's an indication of the intelligence level between the two.
Like they just completely forgot to set it up for Dorothy 1, learned from their mistakes, and had Dorothy 2
Strikes
ready
me
to
you'd
go.
have a couple of trial runs before you just decided to stick it inside a tornado. But that's me. I'm not a science gal, so, you know.
But also, like, there wasn't a lot of sort of like pause, reflect, and fix as part of this 30 hours of dynamic Twister chasing. I felt like they just continued to try the exact same thing. even
Maybe
though
there
they had
should have
that
been a
small
whiteboard
breakthrough.
scene, with like schematics
just-
and stuff, right?
Aunt Meg should have a whiteboard, and
Yeah.
you should be able to.
It would be funny if it had like a wicked witch in a house and like a picture of a cyclone drawn on it.
Yeah. That's all that was missing was a. Well, I mean, you can't make a movie about a tornado without having some reference to The Wizard of Oz. So they did cover that with Dorothy.
Yeah, I thought that was smart.
Yeah,
and
that was
clever.
very funny.
I like that.
Yeah.
That made me happy.
Yeah, me too.
So does Twister pop?
Oh, I'll give it a pop. Sure. It's within its genre. Sure. Are you looking for a sophisticated movie? No. But if you want a really good action movie, yes. A really good disaster action movie. It's hard to beat. It's got to be up in the top 10, I would say.
I think it's the best of the 90s disaster movies.
Better than Independence Day, you would say?
Independence Day is a close second for me.
Okay.
Does Jurassic Park count as a disaster movie?
I don't count it as a disaster movie. I don't count it.
I would have to go Jurassic Park #1 too.
I don't think it's a disaster movie.
It's a natural disaster. I mean, it's science-y disaster. I mean,
or a man-made disaster, as it were.
Yeah. Still man against nature.
Yep. But yeah, so this pops for me too now, and it's nice to be on this journey. I hated Twister as a teenager, and I enjoyed it now, so that was great. We do like to leave our episodes on things that we recommend. So, Lisa, would you like to go first?
Sure, yeah. So the second season of Ted Lasso just came out.
Sure did.
I have watched the first episode and enjoyed it immensely. And I have read the early reviews without reading any spoilers. And all of the critics have said that it equally as good as the first season. You have nothing to worry about. The first episode made me feel like I was getting into a delicious hot bath after a tough day in something, because it just felt so relieving and so relaxing. And I was so happy to be back in the bosom of the Ted Lasso world. So very happy to have season 2. And if this is the first you're hearing it, I doubt that, because both of us mentioned it at different times. Sure. And, but if it is, lucky you, because you've got a whole great show to watch. So, but yeah, episode 1.
It's dropping week by week. So that's kind of like,
which,
it's kind of nice.
It is a bit nice. I know I have seen some people say they want to wait until the whole thing's up so they can binge all of it, which is how I did the first season. So
me too, yeah.
But I don't mind having something to look forward to once a week. It's kind of fun. So Ted Lasso, season 2.
Yay!
Nice.
AG, what about you?
I want to recommend a book I'm reading called Minor Feelings by Kathy Park Hong. Lisa Chen Wing actually recommended it when she was on the podcast a couple months ago. So I finally got around to reading it, and it's really good. It's part memoir, part cultural criticism, part history of growing up Asian American. And then it's described on the book jacket as a portrait of the Asian American psyche. And I think that is so accurate. And yeah, I think it's an extremely good read. So thank you, Lisa Chen Wing, for originally recommending.
Awesome. That sounds great. I can't wait to read it. I am also reading something. I'm listening to it via Audible, but I believe that listening to books is reading books as well. So, Women and Other Monsters, Building a New Mythology by Jess Zimmerman. Man, this book is killing me on every level. Occasionally, I find myself sort of vehemently challenging what is being said while I'm listening to it. And then other times I am so floored by what is being said and like how much I relate to it and how truthful it feels to me that I'm like having to pause and create bookmarks and like quotes and stuff. But it's excellent and depressing. And I actually don't really care about mythology that much. And I say this as someone who had a magazine called Medusa. But it's really compelling the way that she writes about mythology and challenges it and then creates these like parallel and contemporary feminist readings of the texts in the stories and talking about monstrosity as it relates to women specifically. And I really love it so much.
That sounds amazing. I want to listen to it right now.
Yeah, that sounds really good.
Yeah,
Wow,
I actually like would recommend maybe getting the physical book because she doesn't get to read it, and I don't know that I love the vocal performance of the narrator for this book, but it's still good. But I feel like it's the kind of book where you would want to like have it so you can return to it over and over and over again, and like put little tabs or something, like, or I don't write in my books, but like I love having little stickers. Like the
little pointy ones. I like those.
Yeah, those little fancy ones, and I love that for books. So now it's going to be one of those books that I own in both like Audible form and physical form because I have to go out and get it now too, so I can like just reference it forever.
Excellent. Well, what a fine episode.
Truly,
from low to high art. That's what we do here.
Really great work. Well. And actually, I'm just going to tell you that, like, a friend of mine texted me earlier today saying he was listening to our Hacks episode, and he was talking about how we were right about, like, the Wikipedia entry is wrong in terms of Hannah being described as a millennial. So he was going to go and correct the Wikipedia entry, and it had already been fixed. And I'm not going to credit us with that, but I will say it's fixed. So
wow. Wow.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
Just we're contributing to culture all over the place.
Just
friends.
The good works we do here.
And that our friends and listeners try and do. It's so nice.
Yeah, thank you. Well, thank you all for listening.
Yes. Thank you so much, everyone. Please, if you'd like to rate and review us, 5 stars. If you'd like to hang out with us on...
do you know that in the 2 weeks when you were writing your book, when we got to this part of the podcast, Lisa and I were just like, what is said here?
We couldn't even remember what you said. We've heard it how many times?
Well, I always try to say it slightly differently, so it's fair.
We could not remember.
I mean, I sometimes don't remember, but you can email us at popthiscollective@gmail.com, or you could like hang with us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, or just like, I don't know, go outside if you can, enjoy some nice weather, take us with you. We like just to feel, being in your ears as you're walking around.
I did have someone stop me once on the street, and they recognized me, and they were listening to the podcast at the same time, which was a surreal experience for everyone. And this is my part, and I know it well. Thanks to Andrea Gin, our producer and co-host, and thank you all so much for listening because, well, this would just be 3 women talking to each other if it wasn't for you, so thank you. Not that that's bad or anything.
No, I mean, it still will be 3 women talking to each other, even if you decide to opt out, because like that actually doesn't physically change. But like,
that's true. That's true.
Yeah,
but we like to think of you.
Yeah, like we think about you all the time.
We do.
All the time.
Too much, maybe. No.
Yeah, I mean that as creepy as possible.
I mean, the fan fiction you've been writing, I think is delightful, and I hope it sees the light of day one day.
One day.
One day.
I don't.
All right, bye everyone.
Bye.
Bye.